Okay everybody, welcome back. The next step is to set up the ailerons and the flaps to have the proper amount of movement. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at what my maximum deflection is, and then I know on the downside I want about 45 degrees. I don't know what the upward deflection is, but I got to figure that out. It shouldn't be too hard to figure out, but you know, upward deflection of, let's say, 20 degrees, and then downward deflection of 45 degrees, and then what I'm going to do is split the difference between those two figures. More or less what you want is with the aileron control horn centered, you're going to want the flaps cocked in a little bit. So basically, in a normal airplane, you would set it up where everything is centered and then the ailerons are centered or level, and then you would have the same amount of movement up and down. But in a DLG, you really don't need that much upward movement, but you do need a lot of downward movement for flaps. So the best thing to do is to have the aileron servos and the flap servos centered with the horn at 90 degrees, and then have the flaps themselves, you know, actually engaged a little bit at that mode. Or I'm sorry, have the flaps down a little bit in that mode. So then we'll use negative flap to kind of put the ailerons up where they're supposed to be, and that's where they'll be in you know, whatever flight mode. And then in the various flight modes, the flaps will be in different positions. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to figure out the angle that I need. I'm going to split those angles, and then I'm going to preload the aileron a little bit. And then I'm going to measure the distance here, and then I'm going to make a temporary push rod. And then I'm going to try that push rod and see if I get full movement. Okay, I figured out the angle that I need, and I used a handy little square to set that angle. Then I held the square against the wing, set the surface to the angle that I wanted, and then I taped it in position. So I believe that this is a good starting point for a neutral position. The next step is to take a piece of scrap metal, not from the kit obviously, and bend yourself a Z-bend into it. And then I'm going to measure the distance from there to there, mark it, alright, check that mark. Oops. Okay, so a little bit beyond that mark. Now I'm going to go and bend that at a 90 degree. Alright, so welcome back. I've got my push rod set up in whatever position I think I need. And I'm going to start pretty conservative. I'm going to go second hole here. And then with that 90 degree bend, it should just insert itself nicely. Alright, hey everybody, welcome back. What I have now is I've got my my servo hooked up, and in my flap mixing menu, my normal position is 100% up flaps. That position should be neutral. The aileron should be neutral, and it is a little bit deflected up. This is normal, so this is where it's centered. This is going to be, you know, cruise mode or whatever, and I can adjust the percentage to get it where I want it. And then this is full down, and this should be 45 degrees, and it is a little bit off of 45 degrees. So it looks like the push rod is just a little bit too long. If I shorten it up by a couple of millimeters, if I shorten the push rod by a couple of millimeters, I should be golden. And then I should be able to get my, let's see, a little bit shorter. A little bit shorter should get me level here. So if I hold a straight edge, my 100% up should be level. and then my 100% down should be at 45 degrees. And I believe that will get me where I need to be. Anyway, I'm going to play around with this push rod a little bit more, and I'll let you guys know if this idea is working or going to work. Okay, welcome back. This aileron control linkage has been a real bear, but I think I finally have it. What I've got going on is with my flight position switch up or away from you is launch mode when it's centered. It's in cruise mode, and then when it's down, it's in landing mode, full flaps. Now, later on, I may try to do something a little bit different. So, yep, what I've got going on is I've got launch, cruise, and there really just isn't. There really isn't that much of a difference between launch and cruise. And then of course full down flap or full landing. That's at 45 degrees. Now what I may do at some point is try to set up so that throttle and flap are mixed, so that I can have a launch, a cruise, and then a thermal position, which will be obviously a lot less than that. And then I'll engage full flaps by using my my throttle stick. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I haven't really tried to figure out how to do that yet. But the important thing is that I've got everything set up. I think I've got everything set up the way it's supposed to be, and you know, I'm pretty happy with it. You know, by design, when you have this horn cocked, you're going to have a lot more movement in one direction. What I've got is about 20 millimeters. I've got about 20 millimeters of movement in the in one direction. A little over 20 millimeters of movement in one direction, and about 11 millimeters in the other direction. So basically I've got 11 millimeters up and about 20 millimeters down. Supposedly that's the way it's supposed to be, but according to the manual the construction notes I'm reading, you're supposed to have, I think, 9 and 20, 9 up, 20 down, something like that. But so far, I mean, it seems to be doing pretty good. You know, everything is nice and free. There's a little bit of binding at full position. There's a little bit of binding, but I think that's just the servo and the control surface trying to break in a little bit. I even have, at full deflection, I even have a little bit of additional aileron there, which is kind of nice. And anyway, I think it's doing very nicely. I'm really enjoying this. This has been a good project to set up this aileron. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you have any suggestions, I would highly encourage you to provide them, because really I have no idea what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of Forrest Gumping my way through this. And you know, any suggestions you can provide will make my glider better, or my glider will fly better, which will make me happier. So anyway, thanks for tuning in.